much to both Thomas and Simon for the overview of. Yeah, it sort of really does sound like it's here, and I do wonder in 2 years at the fair, you know, what will the landscape look like, because it's moving very fast. I'll open to questions in a moment, but Thomas, could you give us a brief overview where we are in the UK in terms of the law, the legislation around feeding to poultry?
So where we are in terms of feeding to poultry is you can feed live to poultry, which becomes a bit of a logistical challenge once you want to feed a lot of birds. And that's primarily because it's tied into with the processed animal protein in terms of legislation. So if that's enabled at UK level, and you can actually look at what the EU's done in terms of legislation, that could be adapted easily. And we'd then be able to feed, for example, processed insects, so the meal can be integrated into the layer mash, or the broiler pellets, basically. And that's currently what you can do with poultry. You can use it in aquafeed, no problem, as a meal. That's been approved. And it can go into pet, but poultry is quite limited right now, only live.
Thank you. Any hands in the audience? Any questions from the floor? Yeah, gentleman there.
What's the food conversion ratio?
Yeah, I think it's in one of the slides. It's still fairly early stages, but you know, we're talking standards around 1.5 conversion, but we are, you know, depending on the climate, depending on the feed structure, you can make significant improvements on that. You know, the growth potential is significant. So we have seen 1.05, but it sits somewhere in the middle of that at the moment.
And there's a hand just in front of that one. It's the same question. That's sufficient. Gentleman at the front. We've got a microphone, actually, if might make it a bit easier to hear.
I saw on one of the slides, presume there's a limit to the amount of waste material available. So you were mentioning there that there's a certain amount of cereal or other foods could be added into the feed for them.
Yeah. Again, that's something that we're working on, and we're learning as we progress. What we see is the structure of the feed has a big role to play in this. You know, if you get that wrong, it can be too dry. Well, you probably know more about this than I do.
It'll be structure, it'll be energy content as well. There's still a lot of work we're seeing it start up now with other companies trying to work out what the best diet in terms of nutrition is for bugs, because it's still early days in that respect. And, sorry. Can you remind me of the question again briefly?
Yeah, I was saying you're supplementing the waste possibly with cereal, because I mean, my other point would be at some stage you probably run out of waste
exactly.
material.
So what we're seeing now, actually, just last week, was the Food Standards Agency has opened up a bid for insect producers to grow on non-permissible substrates right now for anything. So I'll give you examples like catering waste. If you had a ham sandwich, which is very frustrating, even if it was a ham sandwich that no one had opened, you can't feed that to a bug right now because it's got animal protein in it. Things like poultry manure, anaerobic waste digestate. So there's a range of materials right now which are non-permissible, and the FSA has actually asked, can you grow the bugs on these, do the analysis and see what happens? Because the idea there is eventually we'll be able to broaden out these materials, which you might not have other uses for as much, or you can at least upcycle using the insect.
Thank you.
I would add that, you know, when it comes to our insect feed, what you feed the insects has a significant impact on the emissions. We see ammonia emissions, everything from 0 to up to 250 ppms, which you're up in the composting area, which of course then has a big impact on what you're allowed to do in terms of emission management, and can so we see a unbelievable range at the moment. Yeah.
Any more questions? Yep. Nice and easy.
So can I assume that there's going to be permitting issues coming here? If you're using waste products, you're doing something, is it going to be on certain scales that it's going to be come under the EA permitting scheme?
So we're up in Scotland actually, so we fall under SEPA, and I know now that SEPA is basically drafting up what is probably the permit for the first insect protein production facility, and so there's that like framework been done. Under the EA and DEFRA, there needs to be some revision there because I think the closest analogous system is a maggot farming system, which is not exactly the same what Simon's shown here. It's a very different. This is biomanufacturing.
Yeah.
This is actual proper production. If you're growing stuff and having flies' legs in it and things like that, that's very different. And the kind of permit built around that is not fit for purpose for this. So there will need to be a bit of development there with the environmental agency.
Yep. Anyone else?
I wanted to, on the legislative bit, by the way, that we do have, so there are producers now which are kind of pushing for legislative change with respect to insect protein being used in poultry feed. So I think, although it sounds like we're not there yet, it will probably change over, I'd say, the next year, 2 years, hopefully, because we are making that push as companies in the sector.
Do we have any more questions from the floor at all? Can't see any more hands, so should we wrap up? We've covered everything in quite a short amount of time. And as I
We're
say,
on stand 37, so
That's
if
the one,
anyone
yeah,
wants to
yeah.
come afterwards and have an in-depth conversation, please do.
like I say, it'll be, I think in 2 years, well, it's happening now, but it's just developing, isn't it? So, yeah, really interesting half an hour chatting with you guys and hearing from you. Best of luck with it all. And, yeah, stand 37?
37.
37, there we go.
37.
Let's make sure we reinforce it. Cheers. Okay, thanks everyone.